P&R with Adam R. Welcome to 3P&R. I'm your host, Adam R., and with me on this episode is Clas Svahn. Clas, how you doing, sir?
Oh, very well. Thank you, Adam. It's nice to be on air with you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
To jump in, let's discuss what got you involved with researching UFOs and journalism of.
Well, I started as a teenager in 1974, so I've been around investigating UFO sightings for a while now. And 4 years after that, 1978, I started as a journalist, and I've been working as that for, well, since then, really. And I am now employed by Sweden's largest newspaper, Dagens Nyheter.
So ufology is covered in primary newspapers there, huh?
Yeah, I write about UFOs, and I also write about lots of other stuff, of course. But I've been following the subject in print as well from my different workplaces. And it's a big interest. When we are writing about UFOs, there are a lot of people reading it. And of course, I'm publishing material on our newspaper's internet edition as well. And huge interest, very, very huge.
Yeah, especially in the westernized countries. It's enormous. I don't hear much coming from like Asia. It's I don't know why that is.
Well, you're right about that. It's a little strange. We know there are UFO groups in China and also in Japan, but nothing in India, which is a huge country, more than 1 billion people living there. No UFO societies, as far as I know. And that goes for many, many countries in Asia. And I'm not really sure why it is like that. This is very, very much a Western thing. And of course, you have it in South America and South Africa and so on.
Yeah, I think largely in part, from what I researched anyway, Asian countries are they're so inclined on being successful that they don't really look up, or I don't think they have the time. If you consider that they go to school pretty much year round and they're goal oriented, and I've heard this from a few people that they're more focused on success, and maybe they are seeing things and it's secondary to them, right? I got to get my job, I got to go to school. I don't have the time to be interested in this. Maybe that could be the case.
Yeah, they are very hard workers. That's for sure. They work many more hours than we do. But that said, there should be at least a couple of millions in India with 1.2 or something like that billion people that should be interested enough to start a society and investigate UFOs. So it's a little difficult to explain, I think. It's not that easy that people are just focused on other stuff, because they have internet as well. They read about this as we do. They, of course, know about what's happening in the US right now with all those new observations coming out from the US Navy and all that. So they must be curious as well, but they don't really take this extra step and start a society or a club or whatever.
Right, or an investigative group. It's true, because that's the one thing for me is when the U.S. military started releasing the videos, every shred of doubt I had about UFOs anyway, gone. What's piloting them? I still don't know. I mean, it could be any number of things. I have a theory that the gray aliens everyone depicts are advanced biomechanical robots with a consciousness upload. Because like us, we would send robots. If we had the technology to send bipedal, fully functional robots to another world to explore, we would do it in a heartbeat. And so that's what gives me the idea that the gray, or my theory anyway, the grays they're biological biomechanical robots. I don't know if you share that same thought, but that's just a theory anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we don't know about this, and so little that have been published by the military in the US. We have only heard witness testimony. We have not seen any really hard data from the radar units or from the cameras. We have seen redacted pictures and films from the pilots, of course, but we have not seen the originals, and we have not seen the investigations made by the US military. So we are in a position that it's very, very hard for us really to judge what's been going on. I agree with you that there is no doubt that there have been loads of interesting observations. But that said, we have always had loads of interesting observations. So it's not just another branch on this tree of new observations and no hard data. That's what I really want to see. I
agree. You know, that gimbal video from the U.S. If you study that video and you listen to Bob Lazar and how he described how they would function in like the 80s, 90s, lines up pretty solid lineup. You know, belly first, turns over, would use its belly first to take off. When they're hovering, probably when they produce the most energy, because again, they're manipulating some sort of energy field surrounding them. You know, this is all theory and then what we've seen in videos. But you are right. We don't see a lot of reports coming out that are more like, in other words, for that gimbal, there's no question there was something there. It did something we've never witnessed before in the air. Where are the reports? That's a great question.
Yeah, they are still inside the units in Pentagon, of course. There are lots of paperwork there. And even the classified report that came out for selected few this summer, that was also quite, you should say, only 9 pages or something like that. It was very, very little. There must be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of papers, of course, documents that must have been produced during the investigations that must have been done from the interest that has been stirred of this. But we haven't seen them. And hopefully in the future, we will see through FOIA or other requests a little more of this material.
Yeah, I agree. That was a very safe disclosure, right? I mean, mostly because those videos are released, you don't see those things in the air commonly. And they probably were like, well, you know, we could disclose that. Like I said, they said there are things, we just don't know what they are. I mean, that was really safe. They didn't really disclose anything. They just spoke the obvious.
No, that's right.
And, you know,
it's very safe.
I don't know. For me, it's tough because not that I want to believe. I as a kid, I was really interested in somewhere in my mid 20s. You lose it because you're busy with other things. But when the 2017 video came out, when that release came, that tells me undoubtedly something's definitely out there and we don't know what it is. And when you hear the pilots speak, like David Fravor, that was, for me, that was compelling evidence that something is definitely not ours is out there performing. Or maybe, you know, there's other speculation that it's black projects that we're working on, but I don't know that we'd be in the middle of military drills with these, right? We would be somewhere more secluded.
Well, it is powerful to listen to David Fravor and other pilots. And of course, we have pilots in Sweden as well that have been chasing strange things in the skies for decades. This is nothing new, of course. Lots of other countries have pilots that have told the same stories. But of course, when US pilots say something, it's another kind of impact, really. But it's nothing new. This is just another one.
Right. You know, and then I'd spoken about this a couple times. There's been talk about another disclosure from the governments plural. I think that has something to do because now if you look, more and more private industries going to space. There's like the billionaires club. They're in like this race to see who could do the better. And like Jeff Bezos, if he gets a rocket up there and he has civilians that witness something out there, they're not going to stay hush. They're not sworn under any oath. And if they have cameras on them, those are viral moments in their opinion. It's going to get viral. So I think why we're speeding up now is mostly because private industry is getting more involved with space exploration. And, you know, there's a lot more really advanced telescopes being purchased by the private sector.
Yeah, I've been talking to Professor Avi Loeb several times, the Harvard professor that is running the Galileo project now. And he's planning to put telescopes in action around the world, trying to get pictures of UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them. But that has been done before. We have had telescopes doing that before Avi Loeb's project. It's very, very hard to get pictures of bona fide UFOs, of course. So I don't think he will succeed in that, sorry to say, but it's a good endeavor, and I really applaud it, and I hope he will get something.
Indeed. I mean, you're again, if we're speculating on an advanced life form that made advanced machinery, it's hard to get a telescope and find an F-A-22 Raptor, right? That would prove difficult.
Absolutely.
So you're imagining a vehicle that is 20 times more advanced. Yeah, the likelihood's pretty low. I like Avi Loeb. I appreciate what he's and what he says about there being more open-minded. You have to be. I just read something about FRB 121102, some sort of pretty consistent signal coming from a galaxy from something like 3 billion light years away, but it's consistent. And it gives me kind of that, like a homing beacon type. There's some kind of feel to that. And I don't know, like that, it's 3 billion million. It's 3 billion light years away. That's
yeah, it's far away.
Yeah, it's pretty
in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, that's you're talking lifetimes, or unless we figure out something in quantum physics eventually to bridge the gap. But the point I make is that's an interesting factor, and I always make room for the idea that there's life elsewhere, and they're probably consider how vast the universe is, right? And then consider the cosmic web, which I started reading more about and how everything's connected. Now, how many planets are out there where there's, advanced life forms, but they're in their Stone Age or they're in their Bronze Age or they're just hitting the 50s, in comparison to us. And that beacon, that sound you're hearing might be a very delayed signal of very early television for them, right? So I make room for a lot of those ideas.
Well, not television signals. They are spreading too much. They are not reaching Earth. I mean, our television signals are dispersing in the universe, so you're very, very hard to see them or hear them in any way. If you see or hear a signal billions of light years away, it's probably a galaxy or something else with huge amounts of energy. And the universe, I'm an amateur astronomer since I was a small kid. The universe is producing a lot of strange phenomena and repeating as well, like the quasars. They are repeaters. The repeaters are a way that the universe signals itself. It doesn't mean that it must be something intelligent behind it.
That's true.
I'm a little cautious about that.
Yeah, that makes sense because some of the things I read about, especially about atoms, that one could be here and another could be on the other side of the universe and one could affect another almost instantaneously. That blows my mind when I hear things like that, by the way. That's wrapping my head around that's tough. So in your years of research, what are there some cases you come across where for you it's solidified this is definitely something not from here?
I mean, I think the most important thing that I have come to a conclusion of during my years as an investigator, that is that the UFO phenomena is not just one phenomenon. It's very, very many different and strange things that doesn't really match to each other. It's so easy to talk about tic tacs or cigar-shaped objects or whatever you want at this moment. But if you look at the reports over time, there are so many different strange objects that it's not just one red thread that goes from A to B here. So it's difficult to understand, really. I think we have to broaden our minds to find solutions to the UFO enigmas. I have no solution myself at this moment. I wish I had, but I see so many questions instead. I talked to pilots that have been chasing objects outside Sweden in the waters of the Baltic Sea, and they were outflown by objects that were flying much faster than their fastest aircraft at that time. And I met pilots that have seen objects in quite near distance. and they were not able to catch up them either. But they saw them in daylight. It was cigar-shaped. It was no wings. It was no cockpit, no tail fin. It should have been dropping to the ground, really, but it didn't. It just flew. So to me, this is really a challenge, and I'm not sitting on any answers. I have so many more questions, really.
Yeah, it seems to be the common thread, right?
Yeah.
You know, especially with the appearance of them. I get that a lot. People are like, well, why do they all look different? Well, I mean, an explanation to that is, look at what we have for vehicles. Like, we have cars, buses, trucks, planes, train. Everything's different and has its own purpose. And an advanced race, I would imagine, would have several different things for different purposes. And with the pilots, and with the pilots, what they're seeing, when I'm hearing pilots outmaneuvered by something that, like you said, it looked like it should just fall. There's nothing aerodynamic about it. Should really speak to the fact that they're utilizing something that's well beyond our comprehension.
And the same goes for how people depict the entities that they are meeting. I mean, it's very easy to talk about those greys with 2 arms and 2 legs and a huge head and all that stuff, but we have so many other descriptions as well.
Right.
And this goes back in history. You can go back hundreds and hundreds of years, people meeting entities that they have never seen before. They put different labels on them. But take a look at Earth, how diverse the life here is on Earth.
Yeah.
It looks so many different ways.
Yeah, if you ever want a question of people like, well, aliens sound too fantastic, you look up a picture of a camel spider, right? And when you see that, the first time I saw a picture of a camel spider, I thought it was fake. And then I saw a video of it, and then I was petrified. It's like, that's a real thing, you know? So, yeah.
How does it look? What does it look like?
It's you. I couldn't explain it to you. It looks like the Predator. You ever see the Predator movies?
Yeah.
But a spider version of Predator. It is frightening to look at.
Wow. I don't like spiders.
I'm not a fan either. So the first time I saw an image of that, I prayed to God, like, thank God I don't live where that thing is. That is terrifying. And they're aggressive. So the diversity of life, yeah, I could, over the course of time, like we evolve. Humanity's definitely, well, not very well mentally, but overall we evolve.
Yeah.
Now you have something that's got 1,000+ years on us, speculating the evolution of that. Who knows? And I often believe, and this is why I say the grays are, biomechanical. And I've interviewed a lot of people off podcast, and I hear one consistent thing: the grays don't speak. They look over you like in this really kind of like dead way, but the eyes to me are like sensors or cameras and scanners, and just the way these people describe them looking at them. But one common thing they do say, that there's another being that's larger. It resembles the smaller ones, but it's larger, and it seems to be a little bit more biology related, right? It has expressions, and they all don't have an exact height. This is what I'm being told through interview anyway. So it leads me to believe, if I'm a human, let's say you and I, Clas, we go to another planet. We're like, all right, look down there. Some interesting stuff. They're fighting. They have complex language. There's different music, blah, blah, blah. We're going to create something that's going to obviously look like us, because that's how we really build everything in the world. It's familiar to us. And it's going to go explore that planet ahead of us, to avoid, because we don't know if we're going to be able to breathe the air. We don't know if there's disease. It makes more sense to send a biomechanical robot down there to avoid all those issues.
So what do we make about all those contactees from the 1950s and their stories then? What should we think about them?
That's a good question. I've read a lot of that. From the majority of those I hear, they are abducted. They go to a ship which they perceive to be not near Earth, because just what I hear, maybe the biomechanicals pick them up, bring them up to that ship, and then there's the biology. But then that's a good question. Like, we're there. What if we sneeze, right? What if we sneeze, give them a cold killer, whole race? Like,
Yeah. Like War of the Worlds.
Right. Yes. So I don't know yet. The abduction cases for me are, out of all the things I'm researching, that seems to be one of the harder things for me to get my head around. I can understand fully if they're here in our atmosphere, we're being observed. because I would hope anyway, I hope humanity, because we're a pretty questionable species, you know, we don't get along with each other. But I would hope if, let's say we're flying, we found another planet and we find out they're in their Bronze Age, you know, they're having war. We're going to watch. We should watch. We should example what we do here on Earth. Like, I say this a lot too. If you and I are walking in a park and we see an ant colony and they're using combustion engine cars and they're flying around and they're to their scale anyway, we're closing that park off. We're going to watch them as long as possible to see the evolution of that species and how it goes. That's I like to think that. As far as abduction, I try to relate that to National Geographic's. When we come across a new species of animal, yes, we would take one of them for study, but we would ultimately not want to disturb the pack pride or whatever it may be. We want to observe them, watch how they evolve, and keep distance. And if we could help it in National Geographic's, if we could absolutely make it so they wouldn't know our presence is there, we would, and we would study it. So in comparison to what these are, that's why I think we're under a long-term study. Yeah, I think we're National Geographic's for the aliens. As far as abductions, I could understand one or two because, you know, DNA, how are they functioning? But then it should just drop off because now they understand our DNA. Maybe some abnormalities throughout the time or a disease or something they have to study. But outside of that, yeah, I don't see why it's popular. But what I will let you know, I did find a pattern. Starting around 2006, from all the reports I've read, abductions actually taken a dip, reports thereof. And that's in part, I think, because in my house right now, there's cameras, there's microphones, I could be observed with a hacker, let alone an advanced race, without them coming in here. So I think abductions have slowed down in reports because of our technology working against us. But ultimately, from the 1950s, I don't know, because it's not like, I don't know. Aliens have been around for, if speculated that they've been around for thousands of years, why so popular then? That's a good question.
I mean, if they are so advanced, they should be able to put your cameras out to work quite easily. If they don't want them to picture you being abducted or whatever.
I agree. Just like we advance in our technology, theirs is advancing too.
I mean, there's nothing easy about this. And I'm the first to say that I'm not putting the ET hypothesis first. I'm really looking into this with a broad mind, as neutral as I can, listening to the stories, trying to find explanations. And to me, aliens coming here, doing all this stuff with us for hundreds and hundreds of years, it doesn't really add up to me. It may be something completely different. And I don't know what it is. But to be traveling here from huge distances, doing all this stuff, to no avail, really. They are not doing any harm to us. They're not doing any good. They are not presenting themselves. They're just here.
Right. They're just
what does that say about this phenomenon?
Yeah, either they're completely benign, or there's a greater plan, or yeah, I can see what you're saying. I mean, so let's look at this from another perspective. In any study, let's say we're a project, and they're coming around us is minimized. That's one perspective. If we are a project, because now I'm thinking about it. Look at our evolution, which spans back to the best we know. As far as the civilization of Sumeria, right? Although I don't have a lot of weight behind it. I like Graham Hancock. I listen to a lot of his stuff. I think civilization has been wiped out several times on this planet. There's a lot of events. This is a 4 billion year old planet, give or take. But all right, so let's skip to the point where we start getting more advanced. We're using writing. It could be that we're a study or a project, the only thing that's bringing me to the point of, there's something there is when you see with the pilot, like your pilot saw, our pilot saw, that's the one thing for me that's solid. What's driving those things? I don't know. I only have theory. I speak nothing from science. Because I try to rationalize, because I'm one of those. I have a default to logic kind of mind. I'm not exactly sure what people are witnessing. I would welcome them if they could hear me. I welcome you. Come grab me. I would love the answers. Don't tell nobody. But I don't know. That's a good question you brought. They're here this long. Why have they not? The one thing I can say is observing humanity and all the divides we have, which we have plenty, race, religion, politics. We have every reason. It's not a good reason, but we have reasons to divide and have war and hate. It's crazy. And if I'm an advanced person, right? Let's bring this down a scale. I'm an advanced person. I have a peaceful disposition. I go to a room full of people and there's just chaos in there. There's some of them, they have love. Some of them, they're angry. Some of them, they're happy. It's like a bipolar room. I'm leaving. It's not a good element for me. It'd be interesting to watch, but it's not a good element for me. So that could be one part of it.
I think the most important thing that Avi Loeb said, and the American military is not saying, that is that this must be a project for the scientists, for civilian scientists, not only for the military. And the law that is now on Joe Biden's desk, it has taken off everything from Kirsten Gillibrand's first writing that has to do with civilian scientists being involved in investigating UAPs in the US. And that is really, really bad, because this is not a project for the military. This is a project that should be civilian and common knowledge, not tucked away in some secret drawer. We really must know what lies behind those observations. And the only way for us to get that knowledge is to take this off the hands of the military.
I agree. It would help filter correctly, right? You get professionals from every corner of the earth that are civilian, and they have it's tough because MUFON exists, right? And I like MUFON. They're a very diverse group. There's other groups that exist. That's a good question. Why is the U.S. military at the forefront of this? Like, what made them the experts? Listen, to say the word expert's dangerous, right? Because to be an expert, you'd have to have study of something, plausible in front of you. So I don't know. That's a good question.
They are not experts, of course, on this at least, but they are experts on defending the U.S. territory, and that is why they see UAPs as a possible threat to the U.S. And that's why, of course, they don't want any scientists involved in this, because they think they can handle this with their knowledge and their equipment.
No, they can't do that. I mean, that's them. Well, that's them acknowledging something's there, right? We're afraid of this and we're going to wrap it up, but it's not good enough, because if you don't have multiple minds behind this, you can miss something. Absolutely.
I think that's very, very important. You need multiple and diverse minds to find explanations for the UAP enigma. And by calling this UAP instead of UFOs, they have narrowed down what they are investigating to only be reports from military personnel or civilians employed by the military, and not getting involved in investigating things like MUFON or UFO-Sweden are doing. They don't want the civilians' reports, or they don't want the abductions. They don't want all that stuff.
I wonder if one part of that's because they want to eliminate the nonsense, right? They don't want the nonsensical stuff. Versus...
Yes, that's good, of course. And the Swedish military tells me, and they told me for years and years, that they also want to get rid of this nonsense and only focus on the real stuff, the things that could be a possible threat, or some physical things that may come from the east or the west or whatever.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. So it's a good point. I have to imagine, though, here it is. It's the 21st century. The UFO phenomena going back hundreds of years, more popular in the 1940s. I think if they were going to attack, I think they would attack us when we didn't have nukes, right? So I mean, for it'd probably be let's say their interest is in Earth and they want the material here. They would definitely attack us before we had the ability to use a sun, right?
Yeah.
Which gives me pause of their presence then, because it's definitely not. I don't know. it has to be benign.
It's very hard to see what they really would like if they are coming here from another planet. It's much more easy to go to the asteroid belt or well, whatever, to get their minerals. I mean, the only thing that is really interesting on Earth, it's the humans,
right?
And of course animals. But the humans are what they should be studying if they are coming here.
Well, yeah. I mean, imagine. I say this a lot. It's funny, but in my mind, it's both serious and funny. But somewhere there's a main ship for aliens, right? And they have the technology. They're watching multiple planets that have life on it because they're there. And they're like, "What are you watching?" I'm going to watch Earth. That place is crazy. It's hilarious. There's all sorts of insanity happening there. It's constantly. So yeah, we're definitely entertaining. There's no question about it. Crazy place, Earth.
I mean, John Keel called it Disneyland of the gods in one of his books.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's like you'll never be bored watching Earth. I promise. This place is insane.
No, that's for sure.
So that being said, that's a good question. The few things that come to mind that it's definitely a long-term study, and/or it's we're a project, which I hate to think that, by the way. I would rather be study than be the project, right? Like, we'd be the new thing to find. To study would be great, but to be a project, that would bother me a little bit, right? Because then it would really make you take a step back. Like, now what's the purpose of life, right? I don't know. So let me ask you this. In Sweden, are there more or less cases of UFOs than U.S. anyway?
We get around one report every day to UFO-Sweden. But that said, most of the reports are just specks of lights in the sky and quite mundane things. Very, very, very few really interesting bona fide UFOs, maybe one or two every year. So people are carrying those mobile cameras with them all the time, but the pictures they take with them
terrible
are not very impressive, to say the least. Very, very bad, to be honest. One would think that if UFOs were common, you should get better and better pictures. But since the UFO enigma, I think, is very, very scarce, it doesn't appear every day. It doesn't appear every week. You don't get too many pictures. You only get these planets and aircraft, and we see so many bad pictures. It's incredible.
I hear that a lot from the MUFON. You know, I'd spoken to Doug Wilson. He's
I know him. Yeah, I know him.
He's on our episode we covered, equipment, cameras he used, because when you're using a digital camera, it's basically a compensated image. It's trying to that camera is trying to remake an image that it's not sure if it's there or not. It's just recreating it the best of its ability. So I don't think you're going to ever get a great 1,000 unless it's a cell phone camera and they find these aliens parked at McDonald's or something. That's outside of that, it's not happening. And I've spoken to a lot of people. I have my own theories, like why they glow in the air. They're emitting some sort of energy we don't understand. And when it's nighttime, it's causing a disturbance around it. The chemicals in the air is being mixed with it. Outside of that, you're right. I'm trying to think of one photograph from ufology that is just. There's one I did see where I'm sure you have too. It's a video, and you can see the two beings in I guess the cockpit, you could call it. But I don't know.
I mean the Turkish video?
Yes, that one. I don't know. Yeah. That seems staged. I got to be honest.
Well, I'm not impressed of that at all. I mean, it's in so far distance. They have zoomed in, hundreds and hundreds of times, and it could be really anything you see there. And I've never seen an investigation really of the original material being published.
You're right. I've never read anything further other than that video clip and YouTube speculation, but I don't know. I'm trying to think right now of any video that really had people at boom. That's the one, outside of the military ones, outside of those.
Yeah.
There's really nothing. You're right. You got a point.
You have to go back to the 1970s and 80s to get nice pictures of your UFOs. and many of them were staged. I took the opportunity to call people that took pictures when they were young, always men, never a woman, and they took fantastic pictures here in Sweden, and they were really seeing those flying saucer crafts in broad daylight. And I called them 10 years after, 20 years after, maybe 30 years after, and nearly all of them confessed that they were staged. They have done this because they wanted to impress someone or just to get their picture in the paper or whatever.
Right.
So very few of those early pictures are still interesting. Very few, and most of them are in doubt.
Yeah, you're right. And partially, that's the scary part. To make a fraudulent UFO today, too easy, way too easy.
Yeah, very easy.
And even so, if they're doing it then, and now with the today's technology and all the apps you can download, it's probably at a higher scale, much higher scale. Yeah,
you cannot trust the picture. You must have the witnesses as well. Most probably more than one witness. I mean, it would be 3 or 4. That would be good, and not just the picture, because the picture says nothing. It's just the beginning of an investigation.
Yeah, you're right, because there's got to be a follow-up on it. It's got to be analyzed. But it's going to be tough because I'm going to get out and do a documentary. And I'm one of those. If you're watching my documentary, it's probably going to be boring because I'm not going to sensationalize. I'm not going to make it more exciting. I'm building a network so when I travel, I know where to go. Where is the spot? So I'm not, and I live in
Florida. The way to do it. That's the way to do it. I mean, take a look at J.J. Abrams' UFO documentary. Have you seen that?
J.J.
Abrams.
Let me write that down. I haven't seen that yet.
Well, it's been on all over the world now. I think I saw it on Swedish television as well. It's in 4 parts. It's made this year, and a lot of it covers the U.S. military and what's happened there. But the documentary is full of pictures that are explained, misinterpretations, just crap, whatever, and no one explains to the viewer which is which, because there are some good ones as well, but you never get to know that.
See, that's unfortunate. And that's many of these shows I've watched where I hung out for that last minute, gets on to like the last 10 minutes, and they're like, well, next week. I'm like, God damn it. I hate that. Just put it out there. But they should definitely explain what's what. There should be a fact fiction section to that.
Yeah, because then you can learn something. And what you are saying, that you want to make a documentary that is a little boring, that's fine. I think that would be a wonderful documentary. Maybe you can get to know something after watching it.
Right, yeah. I mean, listen, I have witnessed nothing ever. Not ghosts, nothing. This podcast I do, I speak about everything. I have detectives on the show. I have ufology, paranormal, health and wellness. I'm pretty diverse. I don't have any one subject I fall under. I am fascinated by UFOs and ghosts because I'm one of those, before I leave this planet, however that may be, I want to know. I really want to know badly because it's driving. Good. And I'll tell you what, again, those videos from the military lit a fire in me because now I have to know. It's not about just wanting to know. Now I got to. And when I go do the doc, look, man, I'm a weird person. I run to the problem. I'm the guy that dies in the movie, So if I find something, it's going to be documented. It's not going to be from the distance where I zoom in. I'm running at whatever it is. It's going to happen. So I
must confess that I have had this fire since 1974. I was 16 at that time, and I started UFO Society here in Sweden, and I felt that fire since then. And the U.S. military films are okay, interesting, but to me, they're just one other jigsaw in this puzzle.
Yep.
Just one other one. And in the early 1980s, I started to work together with some friends, and we have now built the world's largest UFO archives, which is here in Sweden. And we are trying to help the world with good information about UFOs and the paranormal. It's not just UFOs, it's all those topics that you are interested in are stored at AFU, Archives for the Unexplained, as it's called. And it's growing bigger and bigger and bigger for every week that goes. And we have 7,000 square feet now.
Wow.
And 4,000 yards of bookshelves. So it's quite good. It's quite good.
That's an enormous amount of information stored.
It is.
I would have to have you on the podcast for the next 5 years straight just to cover that.
Yeah, I can sit there and read from the papers. We have millions of papers, and we have 60,000 UFO reports, 55,000 books in the library, but millions of documents and newspaper clippings and paraphernalia, stuff of whatever you are looking for. We have it. We have even a police jacket from Alan Godfrey, who was maybe the first policeman in the UK that was abducted in 1980. We have his police jacket. Oh. We have so many interesting things that have fallen from the sky or been found together with observations of UFOs. We have tapes, hours and hours and hours of films, and of course, everything that you would like to know about UFOs.
My goodness, man. You've definitely done the legwork.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that. I'll have you on the podcast monthly. Will you pick whatever 3 cases you want to talk about? Bring on whoever you want. We'll talk about it. I would love to.
I wish I had the time.
Yeah,
I wish I had the time to do that. I would be glad to be back another time.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be scheduling you a lot in the future. Like, just let me know when. Because that's a lot of information you got. That's tremendous information.
Yeah, you can find us at afu.se if you want to take a look at us.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that up on the so other people can find it too. Real quick, sorry, before we close out.
Yeah.
Parallels between the paranormal and UFOs. I'm sure, as you just said, there's a lot of those, right?
Yeah.
What do you think that is, personally? I have my own thoughts on that, but I'm curious to know what other people think of that.
I mean, I've been meeting so many people that have met angels, gnomes, of course, aliens. You can put a name on them, of course. But they are on the verge of our reality, in a way. They are not really here, but sometimes they are. So they are vanishing in many strange ways. They are experienced in very strange ways as well. Sometimes it's like they were inside your head. It's something happening inside you as a human. And other times it's more physical. And that is strange. I mean, I think you must be studying parapsychology as well to be able to understand some of the aspects of the UFO enigma.
I say this a lot too. The human brain, we don't even use its full potential, right? It's when you look at the human brain under imaging, it's the most complex machine on the planet. We still don't fully. It's a supercomputer, the brain, and so you imagine. And maybe this is a pattern I found, but there's been reports of people having head injuries that, like the guy that got in a car accident and he could play piano at a master level. Like, that's not fake. He could legitimately play the piano at a master's level. So there's a lot of potential in the human brain. I wonder if it transmits. Maybe it's perceiving something that it shouldn't be there. Maybe it's a parallel, existence or whatever it may be. But when you have something in your brain that you open this new doorway, this new chapter for it, maybe you could perceive things you would otherwise not be able to.
And you must also be open to that the brain can create worlds that are not physical. It can create things, create the reality around you as well. So it's so strange that the brain is not fully investigated. And there's so much more to learn about it. And we must be very, very, very open to explanations here. I think a part of the UFO phenomena is explainable if we know more about how we work as a human being as well.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. We got to learn our own biology first to figure that out, because
that's hard. That's really hard to do that. Because
there's institutes that their goal is to remap the brain to download, upload consciousness. I read a lot about this. And if they're listening, I'll be a test subject. I'm game when the time's right. When I get to that, when the time's right, I'll do it. But the point I make is, I think consciousness and the soul are one and the same, and that's why it's such an enigma, right? Because you can't go to the local hospital, get an MRI, and view the soul, right? Nor can you do that with the consciousness. You could just see the activity of the brain. And I'm one thing I am pretty firm on currently is that spirits, the soul, the consciousness, all these things, I think it's just pure energy, right? We're made, because when the human body passes along and then the brain eventually shuts down, there's been a lot of reports of energy in and around that room. This isn't just, some witness who had a fantastic sighting. Doctors had spoken about this, that studied it anyway. And like what you said, with the brain, the power of the brain, like when you think about when you dream, how real are those? Like I've had some dreams I woke up from, not even kidding you, where I really thought I was there and doing whatever it is I was doing in that dream. Completely 100% thinking that. So
and that is really some key maybe to some of what we are talking about now, because it's very, very difficult for us to distinguish between the physical reality and some other part of the reality that is made up in our brains. And that line is very, very hard to draw, really. Where does it really end up?
There's a game coming out, a video game, The Matrix. Man, you look at the, I don't know if you've seen it. When you get the opportunity, go on YouTube, look at a 4K version of that video game coming out for the new Xbox and PS5. Man, if you put glasses on, you would not know the difference from reality almost. It's creepy. So that's what we're doing with technology at this scale. Now try to imagine if you step it up a bit, what would you perceive? And that leads to the fact of what the brain's willing to accept. So if your brain's willing to accept that game as real, and then your dreams are accepted as real, and let's say there's people that do DMT and other drugs, and they legit are interacting with other things that are currently, they're not there, but that's a reality for them. So the chemical response to humans, that's another thing too, by the way. When people witness these UFOs, there's some kind of shock there, and your chemical response to that, for me, in my case, it would be an adrenaline dump, right? And when you have an overwhelming amount of dopamines being dropped and other chemicals, I wonder if it does alter your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very important. I think we can alter the reality in many, many ways, and drugs is only one way to do it. You can do it by meditation, and there are other ways as well. You can do it by say, not ordinary drugs, but you can mind control, like the CIA tried once.
Yeah, LSD,
MK Ultra, and things like that.
Yeah. There's something there. When the CIA is experimenting with something, it's not because they're trying to be monsters. They see a potential, right?
Yeah.
And then
they want to use it in some way.
When I was a kid, I watched Star Wars. I thought I legit thought I was a Jedi. I thought that for a long time. I thought I could move things with my mind. And even in an adult now, I'd still like to do it. But the point
and what do you think today? What are you today?
Today, I'm still a Jedi. Listen, on my medical records, on Facebook, and anything when it says religion, I put Jedi, because what are they going to do? Prove I'm not.
That's good. That's good. The Jedis are good and nice, so that's fine.
Yeah, they're a peaceful group, but I don't know. I wish humanity could reflect more on things like that. It's just a shame the way we are currently. I don't even understand it. I literally thought by now racism wouldn't even be a thing. I thought by now politics wouldn't be so prevalent. I really thought we were going to advance, but we really haven't. Yeah. We're still like Roman. We still have a Roman kind of mind. Strange.
Yeah, that's very, very sad. I agree with you. I write about politics quite a lot for my newspaper, and I follow happenings all around the world. And it's really been going backwards the last 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. And that's sad. Sad.
It is. I'll tell you what the worst part is. Like, let's talk about the UFO disclosure. Both camps agreed in the same thing. But then at the same time they agreed on it, they disagree on it. It's almost like whatever they say, we're saying the opposite. I don't understand. That's really like a childish mentality. You're both agreeing on it. It's a good or bad thing, whether it be good or bad, but you're agreeing. Why do you oppose when you're in a forum together? Is it to save face? That makes no sense to me. Just get rid of that nonsense already. Why are we still doing Roman things in current times?
Politics has not very much to do with common sense, really.
Really not. At the end of the day, you're supposed to be doing what's best for the people, right? That's the reason there's a government. We trust you to have structure so that we don't have to worry about the structure. We don't care about your thoughts, opinions, and just give us what's best for us. And if we're curious, if we have a curious mind is a good thing, because without a curious mind, there wouldn't be a theory, and without a theory, there wouldn't be science. You know, they go one and the same. So
it's very, very important to be curious. It's very important to ask questions. It's also very important to get an education, so you know something, and you're not just guessing.
You know what people understand is an education is it's a more sophisticated filtering system. It allows you to see things, you know, plainly and observe them and learn from them and not disregard. And then you can filter out the parts you don't need. There's no reason to be like, well, that's wrong. And that's that. You don't, it's good to form opinions, but not when you're at the, you know, when you're harming someone else, you know, when you're doing it at the expense of another's feelings, that's crazy.
It is. And all those fake news that are out on the internet, all those videos of UFOs that are just for entertainment or just for kidding around, it's so bad. It really hurts the us that try to be serious researchers. Yeah,
see, for you and for me and other people that are, we want the truth. We want to find out what this is. When you're putting these videos out, you're desensitizing us, one, to the subject, two, you're making us have a natural skeptic. You're making people who want to find truth become skeptics. You're making us do that by doing these videos, because
absolutely
they got me. Yeah. There's been some videos, and this is why, and I'm glad you said this. This is why today I'm a little standoffish on things, because early in YouTube, they got me, man. They got me a couple of times, so I was like, whoa, there's no way. And then you study it and you're like, oh, it's fake. And then by the time 2 or 3 years pass, you could right now put a real UFO in front of me right now on video, and I would probably just disregard it, because especially on social media, like, yep, fake. So for those listening that did this and they made these fake things, you ruined investigating for the truth. You damaged.
They made a huge disservice to everyone, really, by doing that.
Yeah. It's a tragedy.
And I mean, the X-Files says, I want to believe, but I don't want to believe. I want to know.
Right.
And you said it from the beginning that you want to know. And that's the only way to take another step forward, not by believing, but by getting the facts.
Yeah, listen, faith is a good thing, but it's also dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Faith, you can keep your faith, but not when it comes to prove something or to get to the knowledge.
Right. Yeah, because for me, the day's it's so tough. God, now that we're on that subject, I think of how many videos are out there that I just literally it really did put me off. It's they really did. They did a really big disservice. That is terrible, because I'm hoping that if someone does get tangible, what do you think they should do? Let's say I'm out doing a doc. I get really good footage of a real UFO. I'm definitely not putting it on social media.
No, absolutely not. That would be the worst thing to do.
Right. I mean, where do I go to? A news station? Because if let's say I make the documentary, right? And I find something good. Yeah. I'm going to have to, make it a film? Like I'd have to do everything I could to protect its integrity.
I think before you're going to a news station, you should try to contact a scientist that you really trust or you know, and get some help to analyze, and to someone that can say this is bona fide. An investigator that is good at it should try to see if he could find explanation for what you have filmed. And after that, you can go to the news media, I think. Yeah,
because, from the guests I had on the show, you included, I have a pretty good panel. That'd probably be the direction I have. I'd probably have to get you, like Lenny DePaul from the U.S. Marshals and Doug Wilson from MUFON, and have a good, diverse panel. And then,
that's good.
And this way, the chain of custody of that video is pretty strong. And when it makes it out there, it wasn't just me and I kept it for myself. You know what I mean? I Avi Loeb, people like that I'm glad we spoke about that, because I didn't consider it till just now. If I go out and do this doc and I find something, I'm like, wow, definitely not on Facebook, definitely not on YouTube, definitely.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Because then it'll fall to that category. Oh, this is nonsense. They'll swipe right through that. So yeah, you got a good point there. I don't know.
But you haven't seen anything. You said you haven't ever.
No, man, nothing.
Experienced anything.
Nothing.
No.
Maybe it's me, man. Maybe I don't know. I've had this discussion. Like, I had a friend of mine I've spoken to. He was like, "Yeah, I saw a UFO in West Palm Beach." I'm like, "Why you? Like, come on." Of all people, you're a surfer. You don't even care. You know. I don't know
Life's
why.
a bitch, you know.
It really is. I mean, I live in Florida. Everything crazy happens in Florida. This state has got crazy written on it, like UFOs, ghosts. What was that recent one I read about? The orange ape thing in the Everglades. Like, come on, man. And here I am, nothing. See nothing at all. So
maybe you should spend more time outdoors. Nighttime.
As a kid, I was constantly. I told the story before. I would sneak out of the house as a kid, go play manhunt with my friends, nighttime, all the time. And we're in this place in Palm Harbor, Florida. And if you pan right, there's this lake, and then on the other side of the lake, there's these woods. And some of my friends said they saw, like, well, I think they said stick figures walking around over there. I gotta tell you, I ran for that. It took me 2 seconds to even think about it, just start running for it. And I get there, nothing there. Right? This absolute disappointment. I'm like, what? And I remember being a kid, being like, why do I never see anything? And then it dawns on you, you're in Florida, you're running through the woods, and there's gators or snakes. There's like all the real dangerous things all around you, but you're running after a shadow. And I don't know what it is. I just, maybe now, my adult, maybe I should be outdoors, start searching. That's the idea of the documentary anyway. I'm going to get out there and search, because I cannot rest my bones until I witness, I don't care what. So, like the Loch Ness Monster. I remember being a kid being really into that. And then you grow up and you look at the loch, and then you think of today's technology. I'm like, we would have definitely found that. It's too big.
Yeah. I've been there, and I interviewed people as well. And there's really no life in the Loch Ness. It's nothing to eat for a monster. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's true. I never considered it either. What's it hunting? You know, unless it's deep, you know, there's not even really plant life down there. Like the loch's just fresh water trapped in a channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There's nothing to eat in that thing. So that's another good point. And as big as a loch may be, I think we have the technology today to detect torpedoes, which in comparison to a Loch Ness Monster are relevantly smaller. So yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in that. I think in fact, I remember being in my teens and completely losing faith in that for whatever reason. I don't recall. Other things like Bigfoot, that's tough for me too. Although a friend of mine recently pointed out something to me that shocked me, that there was some group of gorillas, I believe it was mountain gorillas, that we found in somewhere in like maybe the 80s or 90s that we didn't know about. And I thought that was impossible. Like, there's no way. We studied Africa thoroughly. But sure enough, there was a group of gorillas, a group of them, large animals that we didn't even know were there. But that's about the only thing that gives me hope for that. Because I would like to believe by now, modern time, with IR, drones, and all the other things we have, I think we would have found this thing. Unless we're not determined.
You could find skeletons, carcasses. I mean, they must die.
Yeah, these are large animals with a large femur. And if they're presently alive and dying, yeah, I would say we would find those bones, because what's going to chew that thing up? It's enormous.
Yeah, and still people see them. And that's what really keeps me ticking. Because the answer to many of those questions are the human being. And we are complex. We are very strange. We are so interesting to understand.
Well, we like mystery.
Comes down to that.
Yeah, we like mystery. We really do.
Yeah, we like mystery.
Yeah, if you love mysteries. Yeah, you get a TV show on where there's a strange killer and no one's identified it, people are going to be glued to that because it's mysterious.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm hopeful. I really am. What about so before we close out, Clas, what do you want to see happen in the next 5 years?
I would like to see those paperworks that we were briefly discussing earlier on, that the U.S. military must have when it comes to those David Fravor, the radar observations, the other pilots. There must be loads of interesting stuff hidden inside the Pentagon right now that I would like to read. I would like to know what they know and what they think they know. But I'm not that hopeful really about that, but I would love to see that.
Me too. I wouldn't hold my breath to the U.S. releasing it though.
No.
They have paperwork like they're playing poker long term. So
Yeah.
I don't understand that. You think they would want to listen, a word up for any president, future president of the United States. You want a landslide, and I mean a landslide vote, to disclose full disclosure on all UFO information or any other paranormal stuff you have. I promise you'll not only make president, not only by a landslide, you might be there for the next 20 years. People would have that kind of faith in you. You know what I mean? So that's just my opinion anyway.
That's good.
Anyway,
I hope you're getting through with that, really.
Yeah. Clas, it's been a pleasure.
The very same, Adam. Very same.
I would definitely like to have you on again. We'll definitely talk in the future.
Yeah. And good luck with your show now. And have a nice evening in Florida.
You too, sir. You have a good day.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.